I was working with a particular group recently, and we were talking about, what next for that learning, that program, that group, that kind of cohort population demographic in an organizations. And then I kind of really drew upon my own experience of learning. It came up, I don't know how I do these things, I just come up with the 3 C's of learning. There's 2 things really that will help you get there before we get to those 3 C's. The first thing is editing. So when you feel like you're editing something, your thoughts, a piece of work, classic essay writing, you start and you're changing it, and what you thought was great one night is rubbish the next, you're editing. That's the first sign you're learning. So look out for that sense of, are you editing? Because probably within that, you've got to the editing phase, then you're certainly learning. Now I've just realised there could be E's in here as well as C's, so I might have to adjust this post, because that's the editing. And if there are 2 E's, which I've just made up on the spot, how about that? There's the explanation and the excuse. And if you can get to an explanation, there's probably learning in there as well. If you're still in the excuse mode, going, oh, we can't do that, don't know how to do that, I'm not sure on that, that's not good enough. That's the learning hasn't yet taken place. But if you can get to an explanation, then it's probably based on your learning. Justify, warrant, decide. And I see it quite a lot, and I sometimes will call it out and say, this is not an excuse, however, this is the explanation. Kind of keep it more factual. And sometimes you shift it from the excuses to more of a feeling, the explanation can be more sort of up there with the mind. So, three E's, the editing, the excuse, and the explanation. But this is about 3 C's, isn't it? So let's go on to 3 C's, and it's not coffee, although that should be the 4th C of learning. We've got this idea of the first level, if you like, is a bit harsh to say level, but you've kind of got that. I suppose if I remind myself what I put in the post, you kind of got that commentary, if you like, or comment. I love the word commentary because it's a commentary on something. And if you look at traditional studying, then that's typically what you've got to do. You've got to comment on the authors, the books, the studies, the case studies, research, evidence, data, and you just comment on it. It's a commentary. It's Stuart just saying X, Y, and Z, which is fine, and that's what we need at certain levels of learning. Certainly when I was studying this old thing, the beach there, for my studies when I was 17, 18, it was just a commentary. I was taking it about longshore drift, basically the pebbles moving across the beach with the motion of the waves and the wind, and I was just drawing upon the evidence, and it was a commentary. But then you kind of get to think about, well, how do you start challenging that learning? So for me, if I can talk at least in UK terms, up to degree level, I was just providing commentary really, if I'm honest, read a book, comment, quote. Then I got to my master's and subsequent dissertation, probably a difference between the 2, but then I started thinking, well, you start to challenge. That's the biggest thing I took away from my master's study. Early doors in terms of working with a great tutor, and he was saying, you've really got, not me, but we have to start challenging, saying, well, actually, this study is 20 years old. Let's challenge that. Does that matter? This study didn't do this, did do this. Let's challenge that. And I think that's really important. So then that's the kind of middle ground. And if I'm trying to talk education terms, probably don't see it or need it until you get to that kind of what would be called a level 7 in our world, or a master's level. Doesn't mean you can't bring it in. But again, if you're looking at learning now, forget education. If you're starting to challenge something, then there's learning taking place. If you're doing commentary, there's learning taking place, but this is like the next level, if you like. Then the last one is I suppose, the more creation. So for me, at least on my master's, when I got to the dissertation stage, and actually, frankly, it was more towards right at the end, so maybe it is a somewhat linear educational system, I don't know. But I started to create something. And I started to think, well, I've done all this commentary, tons of it for dissertation, some challenge in there as well, obviously, with a huge literature review of 40 odd, pieces of work. But then I created something. It was literally, it feels like it was the aha moment, the epiphany, right at the very end. And then I had this model. It was 4 things. I remember it so clearly. It was like, I've got something now. I've got something I created. It's not something I've just commented on or challenged or adapted or adopted. It's something that is real creation. And actually from that, completely unknowingly, is where I wrote my book. It's not about the coach. That was the biggest creation. It's probably the biggest creation I can cite in my, I was going to say life and work, but there's other great things I've done. But again, as a physical thing, in at least a work context, it's my biggest creation, I guess. I have to think about that. Maybe it is, but that's the point. You then get to that creation. So E's definitely in there. You've got the editing, you've got the excuse and explanation bit to be clear on, play off, and then you're into the, again, like all good things, you've got to do the commentary. You can't get to the end without the commentary. You've got to do the challenge, and you've got to do the creation. And just good indicators to think, well, are you learning? Are your team learning? Are others learning around you?